Okay, transactions. We define an electronic coin as a chain of as a chain of digital signatures. Okay, so what he's saying is, in the digital world, a coin is just a chain of digital signatures. That's how we define it, right? That's how we make it in the digital world. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of the previous transaction and the public key of the next owner, and adding these to the end of the coin. So each person who owns a coin can transfer the coin by signing the unique fingerprint of the previous hash or previous transaction. So the hash of the previous transaction, which is like the unique fingerprint of that transaction, and the public key, which is like the public email address of the next owner. A payee can verify the signature to verify the chain of ownership. So the person who's receiving the coin can verify the signature and the chain of ownership. So here's a diagram by Satoshi Nakamoto himself, and it looks pretty cool. I'm going to try to explain this and make it as simple as possible for everybody to understand. So let's start with owner number 3. Let's start with him, all right? That's his public key, okay? Owner number 2 sent him a coin, let's say. So what he does is he checks the previous hash, okay? This is their hash. Checks the previous hash, and they verify owner number 2 had that sort of coin, and owner number 2 signs the signature, or signs the coin over to owner number 3 with his private key, and owner number 2's public key is basically the verification that he had the coin, and so owner number 2's private key is the verification that owner number 2 had the public key. And so that's how it kind of works. Let's actually try to do it another way. So here you have a transaction. Here you have owner number 2's public key. You have his private key down here, okay? Owner number 1 has decided to send him money. And so owner number 1 sends him money, and he sends the money, and it's verified by his public key and its hash of the previous transaction. And then he signs over the fact that he owns the public key for owner number 1. So owner 1's signature. At least that's how I understand it right now. So that's how this sort of system works. But there's a flaw. He'll point it out. The problem, of course, is the payee can't verify that one of the owners did not double spend the coin. So here you're just tracking the coins in a really cool mathematical cryptographical way, all right? But you can't really say that owner 3 didn't also sign somebody else's. He can sign, or owner number 2 didn't sign somebody else's. He can sign this one, he can sign another one. You can't really know. So the problem is we can't verify the payer didn't also give out the coin to somebody else. It's not locked in place, so to speak. A common solution is to introduce a trusted central authority, or a mint, that checks every transaction for double spending. So the most problem solvers at this point introduce a trusted third party / mint to the game at this point. The mint checks every transaction to make sure that somebody didn't double spend. After each transaction, the coin must be returned to the mint to issue a new coin, and only coins issued directly from the mint are trusted not to be double spent. So the mint checks each and every coin by making everybody go through them, and the coin must be returned to the mint to issue new coins, and only coins coming from the mint are trusted not to be double spent, basically. Trusted not to be copied, because the mint is keeping every single coin in their copy and they double check everything. The problem with this solution is that the fate of the entire money system depends on the company running the mint, with every transaction having to go through them, basically just like a bank. So of course, having a mint is like having a bank. It puts the entire money supply and trust into the hands of a company or central point. If it's a private company, it puts the entire money supply and trust on that company. Side note here, and this is a new thought that's emerging, a country's entire money supply is actually in the hands of one central authority, the central bank, that dictate all policy. Is that really fair? Shouldn't the money supply be democratic and not in the hands of an elite few? So this is part of the idea of separating money and state. Just like you had separation of church and state, religion and state, basically, you now with cryptocurrency have this separation of state and money and finances. But that's just speculation and side note on my end. He didn't really say that here. All he's saying is, you have when you introduce a mint, you're just introducing another central third party, a bank in the system, and everything has to go through the bank. So now the next line. We need a way for the payee to know that the previous owners did not sign any earlier transactions. So we need a way to see that the previous owners of the coins didn't sign any earlier transaction. We need a way for all of us to see what the previous transaction was, basically. For our purposes, the earliest transaction is the one that counts. We don't care about the later attempts to double spend. So what he's saying is, we don't really care about people trying to double spend in the future. That doesn't really affect us. As long as we don't get screwed over in the present, we're good. So the past transaction is all that counts. As long as he didn't cheat us, we're good. Everything's Gucci. If he wants to cheat somebody else in the future, that's his problem. Okay. The only way to confirm the absence of a transaction is to be aware of all transactions. And this may sound like madness at first, but he gives you the system as to how to do this. So he's saying, the only way to guarantee there were no double spending transactions is to be aware of all transactions, and we need to see all transactions ever made. Quote, it's in the past tense, so we care about all transactions ever made in the past. Okay, so that's what this is. It tracks the past to make sure that we don't there's no double spending in the system. In the mint-based model, the mint was aware of all transactions and it decided which arrived first. So in the mint model, right, in the trusted third-party model, the mint was aware of all transactions and they got to decide which transaction came first. They got to decide the order of transactions, if you will. The chronological order of transactions. Where have you heard that line before? Oh, it was somewhere in the introduction in there. Okay. To accomplish this without a trusted third party, transactions must be publicly announced, and we need a system for participants to agree on a single history of the order in which they were received. So in order to accomplish the same thing the mint was doing, all transactions must be publicly announced, meaning they must be publicly known, and we need a system where everyone can agree on a single history/timeline of the order in which the translations came in or were received. The payee needs proof that at the time of each transaction, the majority of the nodes agreed it was the first received. The person being paid the digital coin needs proof that the majority of the computers agree that it was the first time the payee, the person receiving the money, was receiving the coin. AKA, what he's saying is, we need a majority of computers to agree that this this coin wasn't double spent. Okay, so how do we do that?